Welcome, Guardians. It seems that you stumbled upon an HVT and need some help navigating target profiles. Take this as a one-stop guide to the next Vanguard project designation, the HVT Archives. This video is split into sections covering the basics of what an HVT is. The basics will be an introduction to the HVT Archives, covering the HVT format and the target classes. This section will also cover some background information and new terms that could lead to a new listener becoming lost or confused. Okay, let's begin.
Operating system-wide, the Vanguard operates beyond jurisdiction, empowered and entrusted by the consensus. With the unending task of protecting the last spark of humanity from high-value targets, these targets pose a significant threat to the last city by possible physical or psychological harm.
The HVT Archive is a fan-creative writing platform centered around the Vanguard that's entrusted with protecting the last city of humanity by either locating and destroying possible threats, or by containing them. Targets can range from objects, lifeforms, locations, and more that could pose a danger to the existence of humanity or the universe. Each HVT is given a unique number and designation. The format. The way HVT documentation is formatted and graded is as follows. At the top, we begin with the observation level for the file, followed by the HVT's item number for the documentation. Observation levels are representative of the clearance Guardians may have to the information regarding such a target. The observation levels are as follows. 01, unrestricted. All operating fire teams have access to information regarding the target. Any pursuing fire teams are given authority to freely engage said target in every way that would guarantee a successful operation. 02, restricted. Only vetted fire teams with a successful mission record may be granted access to this file. Fire teams who have clearance to pursue this target will do so under the surveillance of Vanguard control and are free to engage. 03, confidential. Files beyond this point cannot be freely requested and are assigned to an appropriate fire team. Confidential targets must be handled with precision and with the support of the Vanguard. 04, secret. Information regarding this target is strictly on a need-to-know basis, and any information about this operation is not publicly available in the archive. Only the most trusted fire teams will be selected to undergo an operation involving this target. And finally, 05, top secret. Files marked as top secret are locked to all personnel without express permission from top-ranking officials in Vanguard Command. Each HVT has their classification divided into two different categories: target class and their causality class, each with their own grading levels. Starting with target class, each HVT's target class is given based on the degree of danger and difficulty in its neutralization or containment. The levels for target class are as follows. Routine. A target of this level can be neutralized with relative ease. No special procedures, methods, or events are necessary to engage the target. This does not mean it isn't dangerous. Routine class targets can be world-ending if left to their own devices, but it's just really easy to deal with them. Archimedes. The target is inherently unpredictable, or requires some amount of special effort to be dealt with. The hazards this threat poses are extensive. Fire teams and staff are to exercise caution when operating within the area. Midnight. Only Guardians with experience are granted access within the AO. The danger this threat poses is overwhelming. It should not be handled alone. Takes high priority. Careful consideration and planning must be taken before an operation against this target can commence to ensure as little casualties as possible. And finally, neutralized. The target no longer poses a threat to humanity. Secondly, the other category an HVT is also given is Causality Class, as a measurement of the anomalous attributes a target may possess. The levels of Causality Class are as follows. Esoteric. No causality or reality-bending effects are apparent in this target. Archon. The target, at the very least, possesses the ability to misshape or distort the area. Guardians in the field must remain vigilant in their surroundings while operating. Your surroundings cannot be trusted. Pythagoras. This target's anomalous properties extend beyond simple distortion. It possesses the ability to tear its space, to rid the line between realities, and cause its walls to crumble. Guardians operating in the field must practice extreme caution when caught under its effects, or vacate the area, lest you risk being lost forever. Paracausal. The powers this target possesses are far beyond what we can comprehend. Anyone who comes across this entity is at its mercy. Finally, an HVT's file should go over the documentation regarding both the description of the HVT and any additional supplements or files added on the base document. Terms to know. The HVT archives will be using concepts and terminology that are almost found nowhere in Destiny 2 the game. You may want to know these terms before listening in. Hazards, memetic or meme. Memetic hazard is any unit of information that can spread and transfer itself throughout society. Memetic effect deals with how the brain understands and reacts to media. Specifically, it's always a piece of data within a subject's mind that holds this anomalous effect. Memetic effects can affect the subject's physical or mental state, and it's also always spread when anyone else becomes aware of that same information. Anti-memetic or anti-meme. An anti-memetic hazard is the opposite of a memetic hazard. Instead of having self-spreading properties, it has self-censoring properties. Anomalous anti-memes are perfect mental camouflage, whether by making you unable to hold your perception of one in your short-term memory, or making you unable to comprehend the concepts of its existence. Cognito Hazard. A cognito hazard is something that is dangerous when we perceive it with one of the 5 senses. For example, a sound that causes you to bleed from every pore, or a smell that causes you to go insane. All memetic effects are a subject of cognito hazards, as in order to process the info, you have to sense it. Info hazard. Info hazards are anomalous effects that trigger when the HVT is described, referred to, or acknowledged. You don't even have to sense the thing to be affected by an info hazard. You just have to know that it exists. It affects data written about the anomaly and people that are made aware of even the existence of the effect. Other hazards include the sundown effect, which is an effect chemical or paracausal that suppresses, negates, or removes light from guardians or an area. These afflictions can be permanent or temporary depending on the HVT and intensity. Darkness zones. Darkness zones are areas affected by cosmological causal force, which is the darkness. The darkness zones can prove to be hazardous and give off sundown effects to the fire teams operating in the area, but can also amplify and evolve combatants. The next set of terms are events. Events are terms used to classify various possible apocalypse scenarios which the Vanguard deals with on a daily basis. These terms are used when discussing the possible effect of dangerous hazards or targets. The list of these terms are as follows. Midnight event. A midnight event is a term used to classify any possible apocalypse scenario when talking about the traditional destruction of humanity and or the world. It's the most common classification that can be used for an event like this. A nightfall event is a term used to classify possible scenarios of which the traveler is to abandon humanity, become lost, destroyed, or taken. Exodus event. An exodus event is a term used to classify a possible scenario that requires the mass exodus of humanity from the Sol system. And finally, lambda event. A lambda event is if the light were to be taken from humanity and either used against or withheld from us. And with that, I think we've just about covered everything you should know about the HVT archive, including the terms such as hazards and events. It should be said that hazards and events are, of course, subject to change should anything new be documented. But for now, that should cover everything about HVTs and their documentation. I think lastly, I wanted to say thank you to all my friends who've helped me make this project a reality. Big shout out to my friend Vismok for making all the unique models you'll see in HVT videos, and my friend Chris for proofreading and helping me with this document. And I wanted to say the inspiration for this project came from the SCP Wiki and SCP YouTubers like TheVolgun. I think it's pretty obvious with the using of borrowed concepts like Cognito Hazards and Info Hazards. I love Destiny and I love to write stories, and I think it would be fun to combine the two and add a little bit of horror into the Destiny universe. I hope you all enjoy HVT as much as I enjoy making it. That will be all today. and have a good one.